welcome to this video interview of the Graziadio Business Review. My name is Audra Quinn. I'm the managing editor of the GBR, and I'm here today with Dr. Zbigniew Krysiak, who is an associate professor of finance at the Warsaw School of Economics in Poland. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Krysiak.
Thank you for having me.
So Dr. Krysiak is the author of the article Achieving Enterprise Stability Based on Economic Capital. And this article offers some lessons on survival enterprise risk management by economic capital, or SERMAC. And this is a way to improve the company's chances to survive and thrive. And the article is on our website, GBR.pepperdine.edu, in volume 14, issue 4. So be sure to check it out online. So Dr. Krysiak, could you share with us a little bit about your background and how you came to be here in Southern California all the way from Poland?
Oh yes, Warsaw School of Economics and Graziadio School of Business and Management signed an agreement in the area of common cooperation in the educational projects. So some of this project I am responsible for. Currently, I am giving lectures at the Pepperdine University in the area of financial management, financial engineering in the business applications. And I'm really grateful for the hospitality I get at the Pepperdine University. And I think that the climate here is very positively impacting, the results students are getting at this university. And Warsaw School of Economics is located in the capital of Poland, Warsaw, and I am basically active there in the area of a risk management company value. And I worked there over 12 years. But I am a practitioner as well, so over 20 years I worked for such companies like PepsiCo, AHE, and different banks in Europe. I was as well engaged in the different projects in the cooperation with the governments. I was a board member at the Banking Guarantee Fund in Poland, and I was an expert in the project realized by the European Commission related to the creating of the integrated financial market in Europe. And basically this experience and my academical background as well gives me probably more balance, opportunity to analyze and discuss and develop the problems or issues related to how to manage the company so that the company will survive, how to approach to the risk so that the company will not bankrupt but will slowly increasing its value.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you here. Thank you very much. And now, in terms of the article, you kind of developed this idea of economic capital. So can you explain to viewers a little bit about what it means to have economic capital?
Yeah, the economic capital is some category of equity. But the difference to the usual approach to the equity is that the economic capital is not used to finance or used as a funding source, but economic capital is rather treated as a hedge for or against the risk. So basically we could say that we are going to forget about the application of equity as a funding source, investing in fixed assets, but rather we are going to use equity to cover the losses if risk is realized. So there is basically a very different approach from coming from funding to a risk protector.
So basically you wouldn't want to have this economic capital invested in long-term assets. These would need to be more liquid.
Yeah, this basically implies a different rule of that capital. So this have to be available anytime, because we don't know when the risk is realized, right? Anytime risk could, appear, and we have to have appropriate resources to cover the losses so that not to go bankrupt.
I see, okay. So it's imperative that a company kind of safeguard themselves against any potential downside of risk, but why not just try to avoid risk altogether?
No, we cannot avoid the risk, the risk is inherent in the entire environment. Is that, like you go by boat on the ocean and you are not able to decide when the storm appears. The storm is independent on you. So what you have to do, you need to cooperate with the waves, you have to cooperate with winds, so that to go through the storm. So you have to be prepared on different conditions. So the main message in that entire concept is basically how to cooperate with risk and how to engage the risk to develop your company. That's the core point in that concept.
You can't just stay home and not go out in the ocean.
you can't because, if you would like to develop company, create the value. So this is essential to be in. This is essential to act. This is essential to go through that storm, to go through any weather you face.
So weather the storm. Very good. All right, so we can't necessarily avoid risk, but there are several methods or approaches that you develop in the paper about how to manage risk. And you conclude that survival enterprise risk management by economic capital, or SERMEC, is the most effective or most evolved. So can you tell viewers a little bit about that approach and how it differs from older or previous approaches to risk management?
Yeah, it is really very new, and this is basically a stage in evolution from very beginning of risk management concepts. On the very beginning, the risk management concept was basically focused on some kind of a silo approach, when you pick up just a particular type of risk and you focus on that without any context. Next came so-called the holistic approach, where you have to take a view of entire company. You have pick up all type of risk, but to see into this in the context. So then it arrives so-called enterprise risk management, which is basically related to that holistic approach. And then what we do, we say that it's not enough to have a holistic approach. We need to survive. We don't like to bankrupt. How to do that? We need to have some certain a fund, which is called economic capital. So this combination between, this holistic approach, enterprise risk management, with survival and the economic capital creates this final entire concept, which we are talking about today.
So it kind of integrates all of these.
Yeah, this is an integration of these different previous separated approaches. And this is basically as well very important, how to create the company value. We perceived in the past, for instance, that the companies created the value over some period of time and they lost the value because they bankrupt. The reason was that they didn't consider seriously the risk in the holistic approach. And they didn't have enough economic capital. So that we are going to change now, implementing this approach.
And viewers can learn more about this evolutionary process of risk management in the article, which again can be found online at GBR.pepperdine.edu. So finally, what are just some of the key points that you would like to share with business practitioners when they're trying to apply this SERMEC approach to risk management?
So it is important, first of all, to survive. To survive, creating the value, we have to remember that we cannot create the value after we fail, after we bankrupt. So to survive is the most important issue at this point. And I would say today there is not any more theory, since we notice that around the world we have already much application of that approach. There is still in a very early stage, but it took a very practical approach, and we have many successful companies in that. And the main message to the practitioners is just remember that we cannot treat that as an approach to modeling, to calculating the risk, where it's enough, to apply some mathematic and econometric models. And this is not the approach where we are going just to charge, the finance department with the new responsibility for calculating the economic capital. And this is rather opposite. This is the approach where we are going to employ all workers, employees in the company. The holistic approach means that everybody has understand risk on his working place. It's like with a crew on the boat. If we go through the ocean, it's not enough that the captain understands his role. Everybody has to understand his role, his risks, and how to react against a certain risk, what to do if a certain risk appears. So this is basically a teamwork. So this implies the change in the culture. This implies the change in the culture, and much efforts have to be directed to the change in the culture. We are going to highlight in that the communication. The communication is an essential part of that. So that means we cannot speak different languages. This language cannot be just a language of the finance people or, let's say, mathematicians. This language has to be common one. This language have to create a best communication. If you are going by boat again in a stormy weather, this have to be simple. Everybody has to understand, what you are talking about.
Right.
So that's and the next important for the practitioners is that the successful implementation of this concept requires a time, and to convince decision makers, we have to highlight, that implementation requires to deliver certain positive results from the very beginning. In the big company, the implementation of that concept takes sometimes 5 years. In a smaller companies, less. But the very smart approach to that requires to get the results from the very beginning. And as well, this is one additional more and important thing is that this concept is most, I think, effective from the perspective of consistency and consistency between the strategy and the resources available at the company. So on the one side we have a strategy. We sometimes different managers are trying to describe in a very general terms, and the economic capital reality force the managers, force the company to think in a very concrete way. The strategy have to answer about the question how much for this particular piece in the strategy we need a capital, which part of this capital, how we will basically perceive and notice that this particular outcome in the strategy is changing, and what should be the reaction against this change in terms of a level of economic capital. In other words, if we would like to go through a stormy ocean, we have to have enough resources for that. These resources is economic capital. So the strategy go to the stormy ocean, so the economic capital have to be appropriate. If you would like to go just for a very calm lake, you don't need so much capital. You don't need requiring resources, right. But again, the consistency between the strategy and the resources is very clear from that picture.
Right, very good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Krysiak. It's been a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for tuning into this video interview of the Graziadio Business Review. And be sure to check out the full-length article online at GBR.pepperdine.edu.